everybody, what's going on, and welcome to Guns N Roses Central. And today I want to do an episode about Izzy Stradlin. I haven't really done a lot of true stories about Izzy Stradlin. This may be my first one. And I want to talk about the straw that broke the camel's back. There was, one event in particular, and Slash writes about it in his book, and the concert is available on YouTube. So if you guys remember, back on July 2nd, 1991, Guns N' Roses were playing St. Louis, and that's where the Riverport riot actually happened. And, I'm sure that was probably maybe not the first incident that triggered Izzy to consider leaving Guns N' Roses, but at least I'm sure it was a pretty big consideration in him thinking about leaving the band several months later. So after the incident in St. Louis, Guns N' Roses played, several more shows throughout the U.S. until they headed to Europe in August of 1991. So Slash talks about a concert that they played in Mannheim, Germany on August 21st, 1991, which is, funny enough, my birthday. Guns N' Roses sold 38,000 tickets in Mannheim, Germany in just 2 days. That was faster than both Madonna and the Rolling Stones, who had played in Mannheim the year before. So Guns N' Roses were playing Mannheim, Germany. They had Nine Inch Nails opening for them, as well as Skid Row. So Trent Reznor did an interview with Q Magazine several years after and talked about opening for Guns N' Roses. And he said it was only a couple of shows, and they were the worst performances we, Nine Inch Nails, had ever done in front of the most hostile, moronic audiences I've ever experienced, he recalled. They were out there to rock. What they didn't want was some homo-looking dudes playing noisy synths, and they made that very clear to us. Our first show was in Mannheim, Germany. There were thousands of people standing there raising their middle finger, and there were bits of sausage on stage. I've tried to block it out. So Guns N' Roses take the stage late, and even according to Slash, they went on stage even for Guns N' Roses. And they were pretty early in the set. It was like the third or fourth song, so right after Live and Let Die, Axl just walks off stage. And if you watch the concert on YouTube, which I've linked to down below, you'll just see that everything stops and somebody comes on the intercom and says, "Oh, we're experiencing technical difficulties, we'll be back in a bit." And you would think that nothing was wrong, they're just, having some technical issues and that's it. But according to Slash's book, something happened to Axl, and he basically walked off for a reason that I have no idea. Slash said he wasn't getting heckled as far as I could see. No one hit him with a bottle or anything, but he wasn't having it. The stage at that venue was literally about a mile away from the production office and dressing room, so a van was there to shuttle us back and forth. When Axl left the stage, he went to the van and headed off to the dressing room. The rest of us came off stage and standing around waiting to find out if Axl was coming back or if his van had taken off to the hotel. In terms of how he felt and dealt with Axl, Matt Sorum was like, he just didn't understand why Axl couldn't just play his part. I remember standing there with Duffin while Matt was fuming. He'd been in the band long enough that his new guy reserve had been earned and dismissed. "Fuck that guy," he said. "I'm going to straighten him out." Matt felt that Duff and Izzy and I had played too delicate with Axl for too long. Like Steven, he just wanted to get in his face and belt the guy because that would have worked with most people. I appreciated the sentiment, but it seemed like the wrong answer to a volatile situation. All I wanted was to finish the show. By this point, we discovered that Axl's van had not left for the dressing room. He was sitting in it, but he refused to come out and return to the stage. Both Duff and I had gone down there to try to talk him into it, and to no avail. So Matt went down to Axl's van to rally him, but as he got down there, he ran into Axl, who emerged to head back to the stage. Matt was so fired up, though, he got in Axl's face regardless, to the degree that it almost got physical. "What the F were you doing?" Matt yelled. "Get back on stage." I ran up and got between them because it wasn't a good situation. Axl can get completely psycho when he decides to fight, and Matt weighs twice as much as I do, and he plays drums, so it wasn't exactly a good place for me to be. Axl went back to his van, and it didn't look like he was coming out again. The clock was ticking. The promoters saw the drama that was going on and closed the gates around the venue so that we couldn't leave. They'd heard what had happened in St. Louis, and it's a good thing they did. If they hadn't, I'm positive that 38,000 fans would have rioted. We would have been held liable and arrested, and people might have died. The local police were already in riot gear, ready to deal with a full-on situation. It was a scary, tense scene and a very near miss. We got Axl back on stage once he realized that he had no choice, and the rest of the show went as planned. All I could remember thinking as I walked off stage after the encore was, "F, that was close." Well, too close as it turned out. By the next morning, Izzy sent a message through Alan informing us that he was quitting the band. He could finish the last few dates on the current leg of the tour, but after that, he was done. Seeing that potential for disaster was too much for Izzy, and the truth is, we all should have followed suit. With that many fans out there rabid to see the band perform, I couldn't see any reason why we shouldn't let this crap derail us, let alone potentially put people in danger. I'm obsessive, compulsive, and dedicated when it comes to my profession, so I couldn't let it go. Izzy completed the tour, and I tried to talk him out of leaving a few times, but at the same time I couldn't blame him. Hey man, I know it's been hard, but I think we can turn it around, I remember telling him. The shows are really great, man. The audiences are really great. We're playing stadiums. I know, he said, but man, I just can't do it anymore. The way he looked at me at that moment said it all. Izzy sent out a statement to everyone, and the next day Alan flew out to meet him. He took Izzy's side and came to us and told us that Izzy wasn't going to rethink his decision. I don't think Izzy even discussed it with Axl. Once that was decided, once it was set in stone that the second of the founding 5 members of Guns N' Roses was out of the band, we finished the European tour. Izzy's final show was before 72,000 fans at Wembley Stadium in London, a venue we sold out faster than any artist in history. But it's worth mentioning that as far as I can remember, after Izzy informed us that he was leaving, not one of the remaining European shows started late. And Duff recalled the incident in his book in chapter 29. He said, when Axl left the stage in Mannheim, Germany, another riot looked inevitable. We'd gone on really late, the venue was huge, an outdoor stadium packed with twice as many people as even the biggest of basketball arenas we had played in the US up at this point. Matt Sorum tried a novel approach when Axl left. Maybe to a new guy it was the obvious thing to do. He went to find Axl and confront him. He was turned away by Axl's security detail. The promoters, not the band members, not the managers, not the entourage saved the day. Their threat that Axl would be arrested if a riot occurred might not have worked on its own, but they also locked us into the venue. Axl returned and finished the show. Izzy disappeared as soon as the house lights went up. We still had one final show left on this leg of the tour at Wembley Stadium on the last day of August 1991. And Duff even made mention before the Mannheim show that I could see right then and there that Izzy wasn't going to last. The cadence of his walk was different now. I saw it as clearly as the lurch of a bicycle with a misshapen wheel. His face was drawn, his eyes blank, his body language exhausted. He made it with us sober touring, but he couldn't stand pissing off fans and torturing the crew. He had to confront the reality sober. And at the same time, he had to deal with Slash, Matt, and me trying to bury our own frustrations by obliterating ourselves with drink and drugs. So before Guns N' Roses played Mannheim, Germany, they kicked off their European tour in Helsinki, Finland. So they played 2 shows in Helsinki. The first night of the actual leg of the tour, Axl disappears during Welcome to the Jungle. So the band starts playing Welcome to the Jungle. Axl walks off stage for 25 minutes. Nobody really knows what happens, and then he basically comes back on stage and finishes the rest of the show with no issues. And then following the 2 Helsinki shows, Guns N' Roses played 2 shows in Sweden. So the second night in Sweden, Axl shows up 3 hours late to the actual show. The reason he was late is because as soon as he stepped outside of his hotel to go to the actual venue, he spotted a fireworks festival or a street festival that was going on, and he went and watched fireworks before turning up to the venue 3 hours late. And then a few nights later, Guns N' Roses were supposed to play in Oslo, Norway, and Axl's assistant ended up calling up the band and letting them know that Axl wasn't going to make it to the gig because he was in Paris. And Matt Sorum later recalled in an interview that he was really disappointed that he wasn't able to play Norway, which was his ancestral homeland, although Guns N' Roses would return to Norway in 1993 during the Skin and Bones tour. And if you guys have ever seen the Robert John video, where, the home videos he does with Guns N' Roses, there's the one of Slash, Duff, and Matt in the back of a van. They're a little bit drunk, and they're making reference to Axl being in Paris. Apparently the rumor was that Axl was having some throat issues, and he was in Paris to see a doctor. Now, when Izzy quit Guns N' Roses, according to Alan Niven, he wasn't in either Slash, Duff, and Matt's party boy camp or Axl's camp, which he described as play when I say so camp. And, at the end of the day, it seems like Izzy was just sick of all the BS and how complicated Guns N' Roses had become. He thought rock and roll was supposed to be a simple life, lived to the full, but he also enjoyed to the full as well. And that enjoyment, as far as Izzy could see, was not predicated on private jets or huge crowds or living on a haze of booze and drugs. And Alan Niven always referred to Izzy as the heart and soul of Guns N' Roses, and the guitarist whose effortlessly loose grooves gave them their unique swing was gone. So Slash, as I mentioned, spent several days trying to change his mind, and the seeds really had been sown when Izzy quit drugs the year before, and then he departed Los Angeles for a quieter life back in Lafayette, Indiana. He said, I needed to get out of LA for my own sanity, Izzy remembered. I was tired of the whole scene. I didn't move there as a junkie. I became one in LA. It came with the turf. Once I quit drugs, I couldn't help looking around and asking myself, is this all there is? I was just tired of it. I needed to get out. And Izzy said he regarded the excesses of the Use Your Illusion album and tour with the same cool eye. I think you make more decisions when you're sober, and when you're effed up, you're likely to put up with things you normally wouldn't put up with. I didn't like the complications that became such a part of daily life in Guns N' Roses. Sometimes, for the simplest things to happen would take days. You're sitting there in the dressing room at a hockey rink, and for like 2 hours the walls are vibrating while the audiences are going bullshit, bullshit. That time goes slow when you're sober, and they have to send a helicopter to the hotel to get Axl. He would just get ready, and sometimes he would get ready for a long time. I don't know what goes on upstairs with him. To me, it's simple. Get an alarm clock. There's a modern invention that seems to work for people. You set it, and you wake up when you're supposed to. As Alan Niven says now, Izzy Stradlin walked out on Guns N' Roses. I wasn't expecting it, but it didn't surprise me. For the record, I had nothing to do with that. Niven was in Switzerland with Great White when Izzy told him the news. I got a phone call. He said, "I'm quitting. I can't stand it anymore." And Niven said, "Let's meet up in London and talk about this." He had one gig left on the leg, which was Wembley, and he wasn't going to go. There had been a gig in Germany where Axl was late and the security was not good. They were Germans walking around with submachine guns and Izzy totally wigged. Like, what if this goes effing south? I had to talk him into playing Wembley. So Alan's found out there was a hotel right near the stadium, a Hilton hotel. So he took it upon himself to rent a suite there for Izzy. He still hasn't paid me for this, the effer, he laughs. I said, you go and sit in the Hilton and have somebody on the crew tell you when Axl turns up. And when he turns up, you can be there in 5 minutes. So that's what Izzy did, playing the final show with the band before 72,000 fans that had no idea they were witnessing history. A few days later, Guns N' Roses were back in LA taking a break while they waited to release their Use Your Illusion albums and looking for somebody to fill Izzy's shoes. So Izzy's official departure didn't get announced until November 7th of 1991. The second of the original 5-piece to find himself gone, one for being too much of an addict, the other for being too much sober. Izzy now rehired Alan Niven as his manager and set about making a solo album. Slash was distraught, Duff was in a daze, and Axl had just had one more reason to feel angry and betrayed. In an interview with Rolling Stone some months later, Axl put the blame for Izzy's abrupt squarely at the feet of his childhood friend. My personal belief is that Izzy never really wanted something big, Axl told Kim Neely. There were responsibilities that Izzy didn't want to deal with. He didn't want to work at the standards that Slash and I had set for ourselves. Asked for examples, Axl claimed that Izzy didn't want to make videos, that even getting Izzy to work on his own songs on the Illusions albums was like pulling teeth. Izzy's songs were on the record because I wanted them on the record, not because Izzy gave a shit either way. If people think I don't respect Izzy or acknowledge his talent, they're sadly mistaken. He was my friend. I haven't always been right. Sometimes I've been massively wrong, and Izzy's been the one to help me steer me back to things that were right. But I know that I wanted to get as big as possible from day one, and that wasn't Izzy's intention at all. He also called Izzy an asshole for the way he went about leaving the band. We got a letter saying, this changes, maybe I'll tour in January. And there were ridiculous demands that weren't going to be met. I talked to Izzy for 4.5 hours on the phone. At some points I was crying and I was begging. I was doing everything I could to keep him in the band. When I had the opportunity to speak with Izzy about why he left, however, a few years later, he simply couldn't take it anymore. The shows were completely erratic. I never knew when we'd be able to finish the show from day to day, because Axl would walk off. I said to Duff and Slash, we got to learn a cover song or something when Axl leaves the stage. They were like, let's have another beer. They didn't care. The final straw, he said, came after he reversed his initial decision to leave, and Axl, in a repeat of Steven Adler's situation 18 months before, issued Izzy a contract to sign. This is right before I left, demoting me to some lower position. They were going to cut my percentage of royalties down. I was like, F you. I've been there from day one. Why would I do that? So Gilby Clarke would come in to replace Izzy for the rest of the tour, with the exception of 5 dates that Guns played across the Middle East and Europe in 1993. And even after Izzy left, after playing those 5 shows, it seems like things within the band were pretty strained. Izzy had noticed that really nothing had changed. The band wasn't really having fun anymore. Nobody was laughing. And, that only further, confirmed his decision to leave the band. So that does it for this episode of Guns N' Roses True Story. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts down below, and what do you guys think is the reason that Izzy has not been involved in the reunion so far? Comment down below and let me know. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the contents of this video, and be sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, and if you love Guns N' Roses. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. The links to my social media channels are down below. Take care.